Well, here we are again. Thank you for joining us for the 5 days of leadership challenge. We're streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I'm excited today to introduce Laurie WaguesPack Hill. She's a wonderful, easy-mannered listener that I aspire to be myself someday. Every time I talk with her, I learn something more, and I leave feeling so heard at the deepest level. And I just want to thank you, Laurie, for joining us today. So without further delay, I'm going to step off the stage and welcome you. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you, Robin. Uh, I'm feeling all of that, that love. Thank you so much for that introduction. Well, folks, streaming from StreamYard, I understand we are live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and StreamYard, and yet I cannot see a single face. But I trust you are out there, and I welcome you to put comments in the chat as we move through this talk. So let's get started. How to get them to listen. 4 steps for transparent dialogue. Now, I'm targeting this to frustrated managers. If you are not a frustrated manager, maybe a frustrated department head or administrator or team member or solopreneur, you're welcome. Or if you're just one of my best friends and you're here to support me because you love me, welcome. I think you'll get some benefit out of this. I'm going to be teaching you a 4-step framework that I use frequently and have been using for several years now. Robin, you can take down the slide. Thank you. Okay, I have $1 million question. Why are you here today? Are you here because you want your team to cooperate? You want them to listen to your instructions, to trust your direction, and to respect you as a leader? Why are you here today? I would like you to put it in the chat, maybe a word or two of why you're here today, and along with your role. Are you a team manager, a department head, administrator, maybe a healthcare worker? Um, it doesn't matter. Teacher, maybe even a mom. It doesn't matter. But I would like to see your role in the chat. I'll give you a couple of seconds to get that. I'm reading the chat now. Okay, now I want you to really feel into the vision that I'm going to be presenting to you. I want you to relax. You might want to close your eyes. You might want to use a soft gaze, but definitely bring your imagination to the forefront. Imagine waking up every morning feeling like work truly matters. It's not just a job, it's your passion. You're excited because you're part of a team, a mission that you are really into. Your vision is crystal clear. Your vision guides you, and it just creates positive vibes all around you. When you walk into the office, oh, you're buzzing with energy. Your team respects you and admires you, not just because you're good at what you do, because you're real, you're authentic, and you care about them. They see you as someone who supports their growth and their happiness. And you're not just getting things done, you are actually building a community, a healthy work environment. Now, each challenge that you face is a chance to be creative and resilient. You're in tune with your values, you're creating space where trust and new ideas and teamwork thrive. And the culture you're building welcomes diverse thought. It welcomes making your vision even stronger. And over time, you see how much your leadership matters, not just in the office, but out in the world. You have become an inspiration, showing everyone what can happen when you lead with heart and integrity. Slide, please. Your mission is your vision. Your vision is your mission. Those two commingle in such a way. When I look at this slide, I feel into it because I can tell she is trying to share something authentic and vulnerable, and all eyes are on her. And I want that to be you. If it's not you now, starting today, you can remove the slide. So let's get real here, folks. What keeps you up at night? Is it fear of failing? Fear that your team is failing the project, they're not following policy, they're not following the strategies you've set in place? Do you go to bed at night with the fear that that's happening? Or is it your credibility? Anxiety about losing respect and your influence? Anxiety about being sabotaged and not knowing how to navigate it? Or is it your ineffectiveness? You worry about not achieving the team goals or even your personal career goals, and you fear deeply every day that maybe you're ineffective? Or is it team morale? Do you go to bed at night worrying about concerns with team spirit and their performance and the backbiting and stonewalling and gossip? And it all leads to the famous excessive absences, right? Team morale. Are you afraid that maybe you're creating a toxic work environment? Now, let me share a little bit of my personal history with you. I'm a retired speech language pathologist with nearly 4 decades of work in the field of communication. And currently, I'm bringing my skill set to business relationships and to personal relationships. So today's hors d'oeuvre is a launch. This free offering is a launch for my Closer Connection program. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Now, what I want you to know about me, I experienced that vision. I have had years and years of working with teams who were part of my company or not part of my company. I had intense training in doing some research with employees to help shift their cooperation. I took data. I was scared as heck I was going to fail because I was building important programs that would serve areas of Georgia. So I'm here with you. And yet I got to the point that I experienced that team respect. I made that shift. I know what it's like to be admired and embraced and valued for what I offer. And I also know what it is to share my values with my teams and now with the world. So today you're going to be learning a framework to open up a difficult conversation that leads to transparent dialogue. If you're a VIP here, you received an email asking you to pick a difficult conversation. Now, you won't be sharing that, of course, but keep that conversation in mind as we go through the 4 steps. However, I want to make it clear today's free offering is to help you open the dialogue. You will not be feasting on the full banquet of transparent dialogues. But if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to tell you how you can enjoy the entree and the dessert. Now, I have lots of stories of being a team member or a middle manager or own my own small business or my own, leading my own small department. I have stories of being betrayed by fellow coworkers. Trust me, there's one at every job site. Being disrespected by my boss, being taken advantage of and overworked by my boss, being blamed by a coworker, and I remember on occasion by a boss, being sabotaged by an assistant whom I supervised. The feelings I had were anxious, and it was a pit in my stomach. And when those conflicts would happen, I would be in disbelief. And I would carry the dread of showing up at work. Now, I'm going to tell you where this dread first got wired in, and I hope you can relate. I first encountered this dread of the workplace when I was in 6th grade. I got called to the principal's office for wearing blue eyeshadow in a Catholic school back in the 60s. Back in the 60s, blue eyeshadow, Catholic school, didn't match. And I got called to the principal's office. Good little sweet Laurie. And I remember with those long braids walking to the principal's office. It felt like a mile away from my classroom. Panic stricken. Now, every time for decades since then, any conflict, I felt like I was being called to the principal's office. And needless to say, I had to learn to breathe and not overthink. But the truth of the matter is, I didn't have a solution to address the underlying conversation that needed to happen. I didn't have a safe container to hold my fear, my humility, and my dignity. I didn't have the skill set. And I didn't know how to open up a transparent dialogue. Now, years and years of being a communication specialist, this is my field. I knew how to communicate, but I didn't know how to continue that dialogue. So it left me feeling afraid and anxious and hating showing up at work, deep breathing so much that I don't think I I could handle another breath. and feeling vulnerable, all the while appearing confident and calm. I was like a duck in a pond, smooth on the outside and paddling like hell underneath. Now, can anybody relate to the principal's office experience? All of you were good kids. You didn't get you didn't get called to the principal's office. Anyway, if that's you, put it in the chat because I just have to name that. I need to be seen in this moment. So, however, I don't have that anymore. I can face any difficult conversation and I can hold the following dialogue with dignity and humility. I have confidence in nurturing the relationship enough to make a shift in leveling the playing field, all the while maintaining my authentic self. I recently, this was just 2 months ago, early in the summer, I recently had a situation with my co presenter and mentor, and I'm calling him by name. His name is Saul. He and I were planning a meeting for a topic that we were presenting on called challenging conversation. Now, Saul is also a communication expert. He has an expertise in conflict resolution. So we were teaming. Challenging conversations was our topic. And during that Zoom meeting with him, I noticed his comments and his critique of my portion of the presentation made me feel uncomfortable. Hmm. So after that meeting, we got off of Zoom and I processed my feelings. Like, wait a minute, I feel like I've just been to the principal's office. And Laurie WaguesPack Hill doesn't go to the principal's office anymore. So I thought, game on. I'm going to address this. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to use the 4 steps to transparent dialogue to demonstrate how I opened up a difficult conversation with my co-presenter and mentor, Saul. I'll be sharing his response at the end, and I hope you see the value in it. You might get a good chuckle. So let's get started. Next slide. The 4 steps for transparent dialogue. This is just a nutshell right here. I notice, I feel, the story, and the invitation. You can remove that slide. And let's do the next one, please. Okay, step 1. I noticed that. Noticing is the seed bed of curiosity. This step is the underpinning of my entire communication framework. I have had people say, why do we have to use, I notice that? It's too many words. Because noticing distances you from the issue at hand. So we can remove the slide. Okay, so what I want you to do to get used to it is just practice saying, I notice that. And say it in all manner of inflection. Oh, I noticed that. Well, I noticed that. Or, oh, wow. I noticed that. Now, with Saul, it went something like this. I noticed that when you disagreed with my content, and you questioned my techniques for opening up a difficult conversation, that was it. I noticed that distanced me. And then the second statement, when you disagreed with, is very objective. It's just what I noticed. It's objective. No judgment, no blame, just noticing. Okay, next slide. Step 2, I feel. Now, step 1 is I notice that. Step 2 is I feel. I feel. These are the most wonderfully confusing words. Who agrees with me? This is the most complex of the steps. And again, you're not alone. I'm here to support you in learning this skill. This skill has many levels to it. Oftentimes we say, I feel blah, 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 blah. And what we're really doing is blaming and making an assumption or a judgment, or a story is spinning in our head. So what I do is I teach you what a feeling is, and I have a simple framework on how to identify those feelings. Now, you can remove the slide, please. Okay, right now, just to give you a little taste of this, I'd like you to either close your eyes or use a soft gaze. Now, what I want you to do is feel into your body right now, just your body. What are you noticing? No judgment. You might notice hair on your face. Maybe your hair is getting in your eyes. Maybe you have saliva at the corner of your lips. Maybe you feel tension in your hips. Maybe you feel like your body needs to move a bit. Maybe you feel a deep breath coming in. Maybe you notice your breathing patterns. Maybe you notice temperature changes in your skin. Maybe your toes are cold. Maybe your armpits are sweating. Okay, you can come back. Now pop a yes in the, pop it in the chat what you experienced. What did you experience in your body? Now, what I experience when I do that exercise, I notice that my toes are cold if I'm wearing sandals or if I'm barefoot. And I otherwise don't notice my toes until I pay attention to my body. I don't notice my hair feels like it's getting in my eyes. I don't notice that unless I focus on my body. So I try to make that a practice to stay connected to my body and what it's signaling to me. So with Saul, it went something like this. I noticed that when you disagreed with my comment and questioned my technique for opening up a difficult conversation, I felt afraid and tense, like I was being reprimanded. My voice sounded flat, like a complacent child. So if you notice what I did here, when I described my feelings, I put what it was in my body to convey to my communication partner how this was affecting me. And then I added a little word picture to further embellish the feeling. Okay, because we know what it feels like. It's pretty universal to being reprimanded, right? Principal's office experience. And then also knowing that my voice was flat was much like a complacent child. So that is how I expressed my feelings to him. Okay, who's ready for step 3? Show of hands. Okay, I see Ahmad. The seat isn't doing your back any favors. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, step 3, Robin. Okay, this story I'm telling myself. First, I notice that. Second, I feel. 3, the story I'm telling myself. This is the most challenging and soul searching of the steps. This step is where the transformation happens. Okay? This step, it's a very deep step. It encompasses our narratives, our judgments, our blames, our joyous curiosities. This step is where you really dig down deep and dissect the stories that are running through your mind. Now, I'm used to having lots of stories running through my mind, especially if I'm anxious and I think I'm going into a difficult dialogue. And feeling into that and slowing down enough to dissect what my story is telling me. I can find my core beliefs. I can find my fears. So it's a beautiful step, but this one definitely is the most challenging. Okay, you can remove the slide. Now, what I'd like you to do right now is take a moment and reflect on your own story as it relates to your difficult conversation. What story is spinning in your head? Now, with Saul, it went something like this. I noticed that when you disagreed with my content and questioned my technique, I felt afraid and tense, like I was being reprimanded. My voice sounded flat, like a complacent child. The story I'm telling myself is you may not want me on your team. Maybe you want me to quit. Okay, next slide, please. The invitation. This step is one that gets so forgotten because we aren't aware of how important it is. This step involves preparing context. Now, I help you with that. Ways to prepare context. We just do not dishonor ourselves or dishonor another person by barging in to try to open up to the level of a transparent dialogue without preparing context. So I'm going to share a little bit about what I did with Saul to make that happen. This step is important because it is the bridge that connects you to your communication partner. You can remove the slide, please. Now I'm going to give you 4 sentences you can use. I call these my pro tips. When you are inviting someone into a transparent dialogue, you can say, "How does that land with you?" Or "Is that true?" Or "I would love your perspective on what happened." Or Would you be interested in helping me to understand your perspective? Now, the two that I use, well, I use all of these, but the two I really like, is that true? That opens up a lot of transparency. The other is, would you be interested in helping me understand your perspective? Knock on wood, I have yet had anybody just say to me, no, I don't want to help you understand my perspective. And because I've had such good success with this invitation, I have a story that I have integrated a belief that people want to be understood. They are ready to share their perspective and they are ready to be heard. So with Saul, it went something like this. I noticed when you disagreed with my content and you questioned my technique, I felt afraid and tense, like I was being reprimanded. The story I'm telling myself is, maybe you don't want me on your team. Maybe you want me to quit. Is that true? Now I'm going to tell you how Saul responded at the end. So hang on, because it did blow my mind and I did get a good laugh, and I think you will too. So at this point, I imagine many of you feel let down. Your team isn't following directions, morale is low, you're struggling to communicate effectively. And what you really want is for your vision to be executed smoothly, for your team to cooperate, and for morale to be high. Is that true? If that's true for you, put a yes in the chat. Now, research shows that leaders who practice effective listening are 40% more likely to create cohesive teams. If you're a team leader in any capacity, think about that. I challenge you to close your eyes and think about what your team would look like. Being 40% more cohesive. And studies show that communicators who are effective listeners can increase employee engagement by nearly 50%. And this engagement translates into higher performance, as engaged employees are more motivated and committed to their team's success. Now, my program for Closer Connection offers flexible options. You can fit learning into your busy schedule without overwhelming yourself. Because I know your first response is like, we are so busy. There's no way. There's no way I can take on another project. But the best way to practice effective listening is in your job environment. I provide clear outline of what you can expect, so you know exactly what you're getting into and how it will help. Now, my program is tailored specifically to the needs of managers facing challenges with team morale and communication. Now, I will ensure you it is not a one-size-fits-all. And this is where I work closely with you or possibly others in managerial roles. We assess that together. I have 6 areas that I address, and we discuss that on the free one-on-one connection call that I'll be offering. Now, my program can address unique challenges of remote work because some of you are like, I have 9 remote workers. They work all hours of the night. And by using Zoom, our technology has made it highly relevant in today's remote and on-site workplace. So we can exit that problem off the stage. There is a way you can learn these skills and practice these skills in a way that helps you with your departments. Now, as you can see, I've designed a program that can transform your team dynamics, boost productivity, and I would like you to consider this opportunity to invest in your own growth and in your team's growth. But before we wrap up, I would like to hear the biggest takeaway from the masterclass today. Robin, can you put up the next slide, please? This is the review of the 4 steps. I notice that, I feel, the story I'm telling myself, and the invitation. You can remove the slide. Thank you. Okay, let me share a quick story to prove my point. It changed my life, and it brought me to the maturity in myself as an effective listener. And this experience, probably 10 years ago, yes, 10 years ago, hard to believe, this experience gave me the seedbed for my current work. My husband and I were in Costa Rica. He had retired. I was still employed as a speech pathologist. We were taking a sabbatical. He thought he might want to retire in Costa Rica. So I took a sabbatical. But the issue I had is I could not be away from my career without harming my licensing and my national certifications. So I had to find a job in order to keep my credentials. I didn't speak the language. I had absolutely no connections. How do I do that? I got creative. I called a prestigious facility. It was a healthcare facility in Costa Rica. And I offered to come in and look at their program. We negotiated a fair fee for both my client and myself for me to go into their facility for 3 days. They provided my room and board, my meals. It was a beautiful high-end facility. It was a progressive care facility, everything from independent living all the way to long-term care, dementia care, rehabilitation services. Um, it was a beautiful place. They welcomed me heartily. Here was the American speech pathologist who's coming to check them out. And I felt the expectation. I felt a little bit of fear from the various departments and workers. And yet I knew in myself, I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do. So what I did is I stepped back and I used my best listening skills. And I went to every department, the managerial department, the rehabilitation department, the kitchen department, the janitorial staff were included, nursing staff, assistant nurses, and even a couple of families. I included everybody. And all I told them is I could not promise anything, but what they were sharing with me, I heard it, and it was valuable, and it would be put in a report that I would be sharing with the CEO at the end of my 3 days. You would have thought I was the Queen of England. These people wanted to be heard. So I put it together. I met with the CEO. I went through that every department and presented it as if it was my work. And I was able to share with him what was being undermarketed, and he needed to boost. You're not getting enough showcasing on certain aspects of your facility, and also what needed to be improved in the actual facilities or with the morale or how he's using his residents' activities, what needed to be showcased to the community. I'm going to take a breath right now because that meeting was so precious for every person in that department of that whole facility to be heard and for that CEO to receive it and to thank me heartily that I had just added to his program development. I had just added a marketing plan. I had just added to his business plan. And what was the defining key? It was how well I listened. And I walked away from that experience feeling honored and very, very humbled. And since then, I have been much, much more conscious, taking it into my work, shifting teams that I worked with. The most difficult employees were oftentimes shifted to be my favorite. And now I'm bringing that to you. Personal relationships, business relationships. So the benefit of working with me is gaining clarity on your own communication style and your own communication strategies, and learning how to enhance relational skills. And by having a mentor, you get personal guidance, personalized accountability, actionable steps tailored for your unique situation. Now, we all know improved communication leads to better team cooperation and respect. But what we don't know is how to effectively listen in a way that creates a transparent dialogue. And I know, hands down, working in the business world, investing money and time in a program like this can feel daunting. But I want you to consider this. What is the cost to you right now remaining in being burned out, frustrated, and anxious? What is the cost of keeping you dreading going to work. So, can you afford that ongoing stress? Can you afford that career stagnation? So, what I'm asking you is by investing in yourself and your own leadership skills, you're not only enhancing your career, you're creating a positive impact on your team. Slide, please. Okay, so here's what I'm doing. I'm offering a one-on-one connection call with me. It's a Zoom call. And during this free session, we look at your biggest communication challenges. We lay out a mini plan, um, addressing that. And if it's fit, it looks like a good fit to do work together. I'm committed to helping you create clear, actionable steps to improve your team's cooperation and respect and to alleviate your burnout and the anxiety you're experiencing. So I have my calendar. I have the link to my calendar. The QR code also goes to my calendar. You can always reach me by email for closer connection at Gmail. So head over to that link and grab a spot. Now I'm going to warn you, those spots get taken up quickly because actually I have to shift my schedule. Those are client spots, and first come, first serve. I'll figure out my clients, but right now I would be honored to support you. Now, by the way, if you want feedback on your own difficult conversation, if you've crafted out the 4 steps, that will be your homework tonight. Go ahead and grab a slot. We can talk about the 4 steps of how to open up the transparent dialogue that you are waiting to have. You can remove the slide, Robin. Now, I'm going to tell you how Saul responded. Within minutes, I called him and I asked him to arrange a formal Zoom meeting with me the next day, preferably. I asked if he would clear his schedule, and I let him know I wanted to meet face to face on Zoom. He was like, "Oh no, just tell me. I'm on my way to line dancing. I have 5 minutes. We can talk on the phone." I prepared context. I said, "No, that won't work for me. I would prefer to meet on Zoom, and tomorrow morning as soon as possible would be great." So he agreed. And the next morning, about 9 o'clock, I see him on Zoom and he leaned into the camera. Now, this is a very effervescent, positive, very intelligent man. He leaned in and he said, "I have been so nervous about this. I feel like I'm going to the principal's office." I laughed so loud. Oh my goodness. It was perfect. And so what I did is I took him through the 4 steps, just like I presented to you. I opened up a transparent dialogue using those 4 steps, pretty much those same words that I demonstrated for you. When I got to the invitation about did he want me to quit? And he laughed. He said, "I would never fire you. You draw more of a crowd than I do." Then I stepped back and said, "So how was this for you? This, meeting with me?" He said, "Oh, it was great." He thought the dialogue went great. I said, "Saul, you just experienced what I am going to be teaching in our presentation, how to open up a difficult conversation." He was enlightened and he was sold and he was humbled and I was empowered and we made a beautiful shift. We had one of the best presentations that we had ever had. The engagement with the audience was beautiful. Uh, they learned a lot. They addressed a lot of questions to me. It was beautiful. So, since then, Saul has been on a couple of my work, my presentations that I do independently. So I earned his respect and he began to open up enough to lean into using a technique like my 4 steps for transparent dialogue to begin to open up a difficult conversation. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a live Q&A. The only thing I can see is the chat. And Robin, do you see anything, any questions? If anybody would like to ask questions, I'm on here. What do we have? Less than 10 minutes?
Yeah, so we have a few minutes left. Anyone that would like to ask a question, just pop it in the comments, and we'll we'll address them. And while we're waiting for you to think about that, I just want to say that for me, these 4 steps, and I love I love your analogy of the hors d'oeuvre and the meal and the dessert because it made me think about how simple, but how really elegant this process is. And it's kind of like, and keep in mind, I'm a chocoholic. Okay, so it kind of reminds me of a chocolate mousse dessert that you have to order. If you go to a good restaurant, you've got to order that mousse in advance so that they have time to fix it. But when it's served, it looks so elegant and it looks so simple, but it's really very complex and it takes time to do it right.
Mhm.
And so I think that your whole 4-step framework is like a chocolate mousse.
I use this framework even with difficult conversations, but even with conversations that are not difficult. If I'm wanting to connect more deeply, even with my 10-year-old or 8-year-old grandsons, if I want them to listen to me a little closer, like this. "I noticed that you're running around the living room and we're getting ready to leave in a few minutes. And I'm feeling really tense, like we're not going to be able to meet your mom on time." Hmm. And the story I'm telling myself is you're not aware of the time. And uh, can you give me your perspective on what's going on? It's like, game on. Those boys are like, "Oh, Mimsy, we need to get ready." So I do use it. I use it for closer connection. That is the name of my program, For Closer Connection. And it holds beautifully in difficult conversations the dignity and the humility, me revealing my experience and opening up to someone else's experience. But it is transformative work. I will admit that. I didn't
Yeah.
do it alone. I had mentors along the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of our guests has an interesting comment. Do you see that?
It's apparently about keeping your
Keeping your
temp,
temper and not jumping to conclusions.
and that is definitely a transformative work, right? It's the noticing, like, "Whoa, I feel that dysregulated temper coming up," right? I need to do some breathing. I need to get myself centered to keep myself from overreacting. And honestly, I'm an emotional person. I come by it honestly. WaguesPack is my maiden name, and it is double-sided with German DNA. Um, and I blow it, but I quickly pull it together to repair the relationship. And this isn't the only technique. There's certainly much more to this beautiful banquet of relational communication. So, at any point, I welcome you to hop on to a free connection call and let us chat it out.
We have a couple of more comments too that are interesting, I think. Do you think that Saul purposely put you down when criticizing you? And
No.
was
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say because he was so nervous to speak with you.
No, he absolutely he's too extroverted and unaware. No, he did not do anything purposeful. Uh, Saul is a professor, and he took me on and mentored me. He writes content for a behavioral mental health organization in Maryland. He writes content for the DC Peace Team out of Washington, DC. So he's all about peace. He's all about bringing people up. But he does love a challenge. He does love to spar. And I was like, whoa, hmm. And I quickly went into my story like, God, this feels like I just went to the principal's office, and maybe what's really under this, I need to open it up. Maybe he doesn't want me on his team. Like that was the story I was telling myself, and I didn't want to linger in that anxiety. So I brought it up quickly. And he certainly respects me enough that, oh, if I'm in trouble with Laurie WaguesPack Hill, that could be bad. So, but the fact that he said, I feel like I'm being called to the principal's office, game on, it was priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what these four steps and what you teach also mirror what I was trying to say yesterday, which is when you become aware of what's going on with you, when you use your mindfulness, your silence to deflect any arrows that might be flung, and maybe like you're saying, Lori, they're not actually arrows. They're your perception. He wasn't putting you down on purpose. He was commenting to you. Who knows from what really why? But he made a comment that brought up all this stuff for you. And because you were
Mhm.
mindful enough, because you were self aware enough, because you recognize that tenseness of, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to the principal's office. It gave you time to think about it and and be able to ask him the question to bring out the real issue, and which was, and in the end, nothing. It was simply leveling the playing field a little bit.
He had not experienced my framework. He had not had the experience of it. And so what I did is I shifted, like, let me take him through this while bringing up for him to be transparent with me. And it did a beautiful shift. Um, so yeah, I'm thankful for it. I use it all the time. Well, it looks like our
Yeah.
time is up.
Yeah, I just wanna say Chunky hit the nail on the head. He said maybe he didn't really know what you're about yet. So you just said that. So before we leave it, because it is on the hour, I wanna remind everybody that tomorrow we get over that hump, that slump day, whatever you wanna call it, Wednesday, with the energy architect, Heather Hutchings. She is fantastic, and I can't wait to get her on stage. She's gonna have some fun with you, and help you with regards to sustaining your energy, not just through the day, but through the work week and with your team. Um, I wanna also thank, the audience for listening and for the comments. Um, he Ahmed has a question. Do you see that, Laurie?
Yes, when you're reminded of your principal office in various situations. Yes, I do. I employ those. I notice when I'm in the principal's office right away. We go out. We change our framework. But
Okay, so everybody, you'll be getting an email right after we finish up here that gives you the homework that Laurie is challenging you to complete this evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and I look forward to Heather tomorrow. And thank you, Laurie, for everything that you've contributed today.
thank you. All right.
You bet.
Bye now.
Bye bye.